Yeah. Really? Okay, great. Hey, good news, everyone. My lawyer was able to make a deal with the judge to end my probation period, which means I can safely review anime again. Thanks a lot, Phoenix.
Objection!
The trial's over, Phoenix. You can stop objecting now.
Hold it!
What is it?
Take that!
Oh, it's, an invoice for his services. Well, I'll deal with that later. Now. Hello?
Congratulations, Mr. EXE. But remember, we're always watching.
Okay. Well, now that I can review anime again, I say we take a look at an oldie but a goodie. One that's been on my watch list for a very long time. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Is that a JoJo reference? That has to be one of the most commonly asked questions in the online anime communities that I frequent. The other two are, can I have the sauce? And, yeah, but can they beat Goku? The manga of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure started all the way back in 1987 and is still going strong to this day. This manga is so well loved and influential that countless works have made parodies or drawn reference to it in some way. This includes Castlevania and Fate Grand Order, just to name a couple off the top of my head. And of course, we made our fair share of JoJo jokes on this channel too. Yeah, JoJo is everywhere, so... Oh, okay, we get it. Okay. Enough! But today we're not going to be taking a look at the manga or the 2012 anime adaptation. Nope. We're going back to 1993 and 2000 with the first animated adaptation, the OVA. As if JoJo wasn't convoluted enough already, get ready for this. The first part of JoJo to be put to animation was the second half of Part 3, Stardust Crusaders. Now, that's not actually a bad choice. SDC is the most famous part of JoJo since it introduced the concept of stands to the series, which still carries on to this day, and if you had to only adapt one arc, I think this was the arc to adapt. But the problem here was that the first part made was released in 1993, and starts halfway through the arc. The first half of the arc was later animated and then released in the year 2000. So that means that Part 1 of Part 3 came out 7 years after Part 2 of Part 3. Confused yet? Good, get used to it. For the sake of storytelling, we're going to start in chronological order with the Y2K episodes. I'm going to be upfront on this one, I haven't actually watched JoJo at length. The most that I've seen has been the iconic fight with Steely Dan and Jotaro's fight with Dio, but I have absolutely no context for either of these scenes, and I only saw them because the memes were plentiful. So this OVA is actually going to be my first exposure to JoJo as a fully animated work. Our first glimpse into the magical world of JoJo shows us the bottom of the ocean. Oh no, it's G-Savior all over again! Nah, just kidding. We see a sunken ship and what looks like either a very long treasure chest or a coffin with the word Dio engraved on it. We're then shown what I assume to be the same ship before it sank, suddenly start exploding, and then some guy's head in a jar? Do these people work for Disney? Oh, it's alive. What? Well, Bizarre was certainly right. What the heck was all that about? We'll have to find that out later. We then cut to a pretty buff-looking dude in a jail cell.
Kujo. Jotaro, age 17.
Sure, why not? If Eliasville can be a little girl at 18, then why can't Jotaro be a bodybuilder at 17?
Those gang members, just punks, but he put 8 of them in the hospital by himself. Despite that fact, we've told him he's free to go. Why does he refuse to leave?
Jotaro's just keeping himself locked up to encourage social distancing.
He refuses to leave until he discovers the true nature of the evil spirit that haunts him.
You're certain that Jotaro said evil spirit?
And here's the source of many a meme, Old Man Joseph Joestar, looking more blonde than gray. It's not a bad look, though.
Damned woman. You even dragged that old man into this.
Now, Jotaro, don't you dare address your mother that way. Not ever.
You know, based on most of the JoJo clips that I have seen, I don't remember them passively aggressively whispering most of their lines. I remember a lot more yelling and screaming. I know this is the English dub, but even in the Japanese version, a lot of these characters are very soft-spoken when it should be more loud and over the top.
You do not understand the terrible nature of this evil spirit.
And so Jotaro dies, but then he wakes up and becomes a spirit detective. Oh wait, sorry, that's a different anime. Wow, the visuals did not match that scream in the slightest. But fortunately for Jotaro, the evil spirit grabbed the bullet and stopped him from killing himself.
I think we'll just step outside and leave this matter to you.
It's your turn. I met my friend Avdol here 3 years ago in Egypt.
Papa, what is he going to do?
I'm not usually one to bag on a dub, especially if it's mostly tolerable, but Holly is really starting to grate on my nerves. So Avdol shows us his evil spirit, which is a big flaming rubber chicken named Magician's Red. He attacks Jotaro with fire, and then Jotaro's spirit manifests itself. A big, bluish-purple naked guy. The best part of this is that no one else can see what's happening. From the perspective of the guards and the other inmates, everything is just suddenly on fire for no reason.
Jotaro, the true nature of what you call an evil spirit is a manifestation of the power of your life energy. From the way it appears and stands beside you, we call this vision a stand.
I can't decide if I love or hate this. I mean, it's not wrong, but it's also just so basic. But then again, in a series as extra as Jojo, sometimes you just have to have an appreciation for the simpler things. Jotaro's stand rips the bars apart and prepares to stab Avdol, but he calls back Magician's Red and stops the fight, having accomplished his goal of getting Jotaro out of the cell. The group heads back to Holly's house, and Joseph gives us an explanation for that opening sequence. Apparently, Joseph's grandfather, Jonathan Joestar, was the guy getting stabbed by all the tentacles from the weird head, and the ship with the coffin has been sunk for 100 years.
You've been talking about this guy as if you think he's still alive.
I believe that man, the very incarnation of evil, is alive and walking among us. His name is Dio.
Holly then brings out an old Polaroid camera.
My stand ability is this. There, did you see that? Those brambles that appeared, that was my stand ability. Hermit Purple.
So, if these apparitions are called stands because they literally stand by you, then does Hermit Purple even count as a stand? It's not even humanoid. It's just a whole bunch of vines.
The image that is about to appear on that film will determine your destiny. This star-shaped birthmark is the star of our destiny, which the Joestar family cannot escape.
With all this talk of destiny, you'd think that Old Man Joseph belongs in Kingdom Hearts or The Matrix. Anyway, Hermit Purple's ability is psychography, as they call it. The picture from the camera that Joseph punched develops and shows them Dio, who apparently also has the Joestar birthmark.
Jonathan Joestar's body, which Dio has taken over.
This is getting weird. I know this is called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, but this is starting to sound like that movie Mars Attacks. Joseph believes that because Dio has taken over Jonathan's body, and that his and Jotaro's stands have appeared within a year of each other, that there must be some kind of connection. Avdol tells us that he was born with his own stand, however. As for how stands manifest and who gets one, that's a whole separate rabbit hole that's not explained in this arc or this OVA, so I'll just leave that discussion for another time. The problem now is that they don't know where Dio is hiding. Jotaro's stand manages to spot a detail in the photograph that Avdol and Joseph missed, and then it sketches out a fly. They send the drawing to the Speedwagon Foundation. Don't ask, they don't explain who it is. But they hope that they can use this to narrow down Dio's location. Our next episode starts with the same sunken ship intro. It does this for every episode in part 1, so we'll just skip that. Jotaro is back at school the next day, and it turns out that he is the titular Jojo of this arc.
Hey, Jojo!
As he and his classmates walk, they encounter another important character. How can we tell? He's designed differently than the rest of them. A long green tentacle slashes Jotaro's leg and it launches him into the air. Jojo pursues the strange man as one of his classmates follows him and then suddenly tries to stab him with a pencil.
That girl has been possessed by my stand.
Just who the hell are you?
Noriaki Kakyoin. And my stand's name is Hierophant Green.
Jotaro can see Hierophant Green inside the girl's mouth, so in kind of a creepy but still cool move, he kisses her so that his stand can bite Hierophant and drag it out of her. You ever see a weird anime screenshot with no context? Here's one for the record books. Defeating Hierophant isn't going to be that simple, though. His body turns into ribbon-like tendrils and lashes out, before returning to his humanoid form to execute his most famous ability.
Die! Emerald Slash!
Jotaro closes the gap between them, and we get to experience probably the single most iconic trait of Stardust Crusaders, the Stand Attack Rush. Not gonna lie, that sounds kind of embarrassing. What were they thinking with that voice? That's not the sound I imagine that should be coming out of a Naked Blue Broly. I don't expect everything to be the same as the more modern anime adaptation, but listen to this clip from the audio drama which came out before the OVA. Jotaro beats down Kakyoin and drags him back to Holly's house, and they find that Kakyoin is under Dio's mind control because of one of Dio's flesh buds. Avdol recounts that he encountered Dio and was almost possessed by him too. Despite the risk of getting possessed himself, Jotaro attempts to remove the flesh bud, and is shown a flashback of Dio and Jonathan's history. Jotaro's stand rips the bud out, and Magician's Red incinerates it.
What's that?
It's from the kitchen.
It turns out that Holly has become sick, and she's manifesting her own stand, but her body and soul are not strong enough to control it, so it's killing her. Joseph surmises that in order to save Holly, they'll have to defeat Dio, which should cause her stand to stop growing, and then she'll be saved. But that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. If killing Dio would get rid of Holly's stand, then doesn't that mean that Joseph and Jotaro would lose their stands too? Just another oddity that sometimes gets grouped in with a meme-worthy explanation of plot holes called Araki Forgot. Kakyoin sees that Holly dropped the facts from the Speedwagon Foundation, and they were able to deduce that that particular fly was from Egypt. Combine that with the fact that both Kakyoin and Avdol encountered Dio in Egypt, they deduce that he must be hiding there. Before getting on a plane, Avdol presents a tarot card deck to Jotaro, asking him to pick one.
The Star card. I will name it. Your stand shall be called Star Platinum.
But as they're departing, they're being watched. As they fly, Avdol reminds Joseph that they have about 50 days to find and defeat Dio, otherwise it would be too late to save Holly. Suddenly, the left side engine bursts into flames. Joseph goes to ask the pilot what's happening, but that doesn't get him very far.
Unless we regain control, we're going to crash into the ocean.
Too bad this isn't a seaplane. The plane crashes, but everyone survives, left floating on a life raft. Within minutes, a large cargo freighter appears with the name Strength emblazoned on the side.
Is something bothering you, Avdol-san?
The ramp has already been lowered for us, but why aren't any of the crew members showing themselves?
With no other choice, they board the ship, and they notice that the ship appears abandoned. As they explore, they notice several oddities, like the window being too filthy to see out of, and no one operating the engine room, but perhaps the strangest thing they find is a large orangutan inside a cage. Jotaro deduces that if the monkey doesn't look starved, then someone must be feeding him, so they go to look for who it might be. The ship then begins to operate on its own, and they see a shadow lurking on the bridge. But when they go to check it out, there's nobody there.
This is a ghost ship.
Ridiculous.
In a world where your life force can manifest as a sparkly blue naked muscle man, and your daughter is dying because someone else is developing supernatural powers, yes, a ghost ship is completely beyond the realm of imagination here. They hear music coming from deeper inside, and they follow the sound to find a banquet has been laid out, with someone sitting at the head of the table.
Bonjour, Monsieur Joestar. Greetings to your party.
Joseph is suddenly attacked from something hiding in the soup. Is this the creature from the vegetable soup from Earthbound? This is my favorite stand, Silver Chariot, and his user, Jean-Pierre Polnareff. Silver Chariot is a master fencer, and his swordplay lets him deflect Avdol's fire abilities. But being the chivalrous Frenchman that he is, Polnareff decides to let them relocate to a more open area so that Avdol can fight at full strength. Silver Chariot is indeed very skilled, blocking Magician's Red's flames and tossing them to the side, landing them in the shape of the stand's shadow. Avdol manages to engulf Silver Chariot in fire, and they think they've won, but it turns out that he only burned off the extra armor. Without his bulky defense, Polnareff's stand can now move even faster. The after images act as if they were shadow clones, being able to attack and defend as though they were real. However, Avdol is not so easily outwitted. Using the pipes under the floor that were exposed from his attack earlier, Avdol manages to catch Polnareff in a crossfire hurricane, setting him ablaze. Polnareff gracefully accepts his defeat, not complaining that he is burning to death, so Avdol shows mercy and extinguishes the flames. Right on cue, the two Speedwagon Foundation members rejoin the Crusaders, only for a hook hanging from one of the ship's arms to hook one of them, and the other one is shot by bolts flying across the room.
Damned ape is a stand user.
Jotaro, this entire ship is
his stand!
A ship that can kill you all on its own? That does raise a minor note, though. I thought that only stand users could see other stands. For those curious, certain stands can be seen by normal people, but they are rare. This fight doesn't last very long, though. While the strength of, well, strength, is impressive, and the user's control is very precise, he left his back wide open and gets split in half by Silver Chariot. The ship starts to melt and fall apart, and our heroes find a smaller craft inside and use that to head for Egypt. Polnareff tags along and asks to see Joseph's left hand, as he's hunting a man who has two right hands.
I've been looking for the man who brutally murdered my younger sister. I don't know his face, but his hands are both right hands.
It turns out that Dio approached Polnareff, claiming that he had information on where to find the two right-handed man, and he would help in exchange for Polnareff killing the Crusaders. Then at the end of the episode, we get some exposition, just for the sake of the audience. This lady and Dio have shown up in the last few episodes, but it wasn't very important, so I just skipped it.
The Emperor and the Hanged Man are already on their way to India. The Hanged Man's right hands will take care of them for sure. Because the master of the invincible stand, the Hanged Man, he is my precious dearest son. His name is Geil.
The Crusaders arrive in India first, but at least they can travel by land instead of sea. They find themselves surrounded by beggars. Polnareff doesn't take too kindly to this new country.
What a backward little hellhole this place is.
Once you get used to it, you'll understand the good things about this country.
I think it's a pretty interesting country. I really kind of like it.
They say once you live in a place, it grows on you.
You Asian guys must lack any sense of beauty or elegance to like a place like this.
You don't think that's just a little bit incredibly racist?
The Frenchman heads to the bathroom and catches a glimpse of a stand who has two right hands, but he can only be seen in the mirror. Polnareff gives chase, but loses him in the crowd. He then decides that he's going after the strange stand all on his own, and he departs from the Crusaders. A man on a motorcycle watches him leave and makes it clear that he's in cahoots with the Hanged Man. A woman approaches him, and apparently they had a fling, but the cowboy tells her that she's too good for him and he sends her on her way. He then speeds off, setting a trap for Polnareff, telling citizens to direct anyone who asks about a man with two right hands to the outskirts of town. The cowboy then goes to check on his partner, Geil, and they demonstrate the abilities of their stands by killing a king cobra. His stand is a gun? He must be American. Polnareff comes across one of the planted civilians and is directed towards the trap. The Crusaders find a truck and try to find Polnareff, but they get stuck in traffic. They split up, leaving Kakyoin with the truck, and the others continue on foot. The cowboy, whose name is Whole Horse, introduces himself and his stand, the Emperor, before challenging Polnareff.
You see, my stand is the gun, so your sword can't beat my gun.
What's that? I can beat your bum? Oh, you're into that stuff!
Kinky.
The fight starts, and it turns out that the Emperor's bullets are also part of the stand, so they can be controlled individually. Abdul tackles Polnareff, letting him narrowly avoid getting hit. He then tries to incinerate the bullet with Magician's Red, but the Hanged Man appears in a puddle behind him and stabs Abdul's reflection, which in turn hurts the real Abdul. Not having time to react, Abdul is hit in the head by the bullet. He was shot in the head. Griff, quick, give him CPR! Polnareff is attacked by the Hanged Man again, but no matter how hard he tries, he can't land any hits, as the Hanged Man exists only inside the reflections. Kakyoin grabs Polnareff and they make a quick getaway. Kakyoin suggests that nobody can actually be inside a mirror, the man in the mirror would like a word with you, but that its true form must be something akin to the light reflecting off of the mirrors.
If something like a stand can exist, I'm telling you it's not so strange that a world inside a mirror can exist!
But ghost ships still can't exist. But before they can plan a counterattack, the Hanged Man attacks from the chrome on the steering wheel. The truck flips and they run away, but they're approached by a boy. The Hanged Man uses the reflection in his eyes to attack again and again, but Polnareff is not shaken.
My name is Jean-Pierre Polnareff!
You killed my father. Prepare to die.
He kicks sand into the boy's eye, and the Hanged Man is forced to change locations, now inside Polnareff's eye. Because the path was a straight line, Silver Chariot was able to land a strike while Hanged Man was moving. Geil cries out from the pain, and the Crusaders follow the noise. Polnareff gets stabbed in the back by a thrown knife, as the Hanged Man's user calls for a crowd of beggars to swarm them, saying that Polnareff and Kakyoin were going to give them money. This is bad for our heroes, as each eyes another place for the Hanged Man to hide. Turning the trick back on Geil, Kakyoin throws a very shiny coin into the air, causing everyone to look up. Polnareff finds the Hanged Man and kicks sand into this man's eye as well. This predictable path makes it easier for Silver Chariot to catch Hanged Man mid-flight and give him the same treatment that the orangutan got. Geil falls from the hilltop and Polnareff exacts his revenge. Whole Horse saw the whole thing and decides to turn tail and run. But he's caught by the two Jojos. As Chariot prepares to avenge Abdul, the woman from earlier shows up and stops Polnareff, allowing Whole Horse to escape. The Crusaders bid Abdul farewell at his grave, and Jojo delivers his signature line.
Oh, what a pain.
Meanwhile, for the obligatory end-of-episode foreshadowing, Geil's mother apparently suffers the same wounds that her son does and starts bleeding very badly and swears that she will get her revenge. Whole Horse goes to pay Dio a visit. He gives his recount of the events, but Dio is apathetic and merely starts reading a book instead of talking to Whole Horse. The cowboy then gets the bright idea to try to shoot Dio to get out of his service.
Even at the moment of the kill, your breathing is measured and you perspire very little. Not bad, Whole Horse. Not bad at all.
How did he get behind me?
Turns out this is just a flashback, but it does explain why Whole Horse decides to keep up the fight despite being outmatched. He meets with Geil's mother, and she blames him for her son's death. Her stand, Justice, is comprised of mist and can enter a person's body and turn them into a puppet. So basically, bloodbending but with mist. She makes Whole Horse execute himself with his own stand. The Crusaders arrive in a fog-covered town. You can guess where this is going. They happen upon a dead body and find that he's holding a gun, and his body is full of holes, but none of them are bleeding. An old woman shows up as two men carry the body away, and she offers the Crusaders a place at her hotel for the evening. As she gives them the room keys, Polnareff comments that she only uses her right hand, but asks why she doesn't use her left. She reveals that her hand is covered in bandages, having spilled hot water on it. Polnareff falls for it and heads to his room, but we can already tell what this means. Later that night, Polnareff wakes up and needs a drink. He heads to the hotel bar and he finds Enya sitting there. She says that she's looking for the one who killed her son. Suddenly, Whole Horse falls out of the storage closet behind the bar, and the bartender tries to stab Polnareff. Chariot cuts off his fingers, but there's no blood. Enya reveals herself as Geil's mother, and the fact that all the people in the hotel are actually corpses controlled by her stand. With his dying breath, Whole Horse warns Polnareff not to let himself get wounded. And apparently all the zombies are fans of Gene Simmons. Polnareff manages to escape and barricades himself in the bathroom. One of the zombies finds him, and using his super sharp tongue, manages to slice Polnareff's tongue. A killer French kiss for the Frenchman. Justice enters the wound and starts stringing Polnareff along by the tongue. Jotaro kicks in the door, and we finally get to see Star Platinum have some more action. I get that this is Polnareff's character arc, but so far, the title character, Jojo, hasn't had a lot of time in the spotlight. But this is just a failure in adaptation, and Jojo is a lot more prominent in the anime and the manga. Meanwhile, Joseph and Kakyoin are being attacked by corpses as well. Jotaro manages to rescue Polnareff as Kakyoin helps the old lady on his way out the front door. Once they assemble on a rooftop, they can finally see the Justice Stand's full glory. Because it's made of mist, they can't physically harm it, but suddenly a flaming Ankh blasts Justice, and Abdul makes his triumphant return. Jotaro decides to light up a cigarette and gets up in the old woman's face, accusing her of being Enya.
Thanks to our past battles, I noticed a characteristic that's shared by all stand users. When a stand user inhales even a small amount of cigarette smoke, there's a vein in their nose that surfaces.
You're kidding, right, Jotaro?
Yeah, I'm lying. But we found the sucker, didn't we?
With the jig up, Enya jumps off of Kakyoin's back, and then Star Platinum does the weirdest but somehow coolest thing to defeat Justice.
Star Platinum is inhaling Justice's head?
This causes Enya to suffocate, and all the zombies are rendered back to being dead bodies. Abdul explains to Polnareff that he survived because his face was tilted up, due to being stabbed in the back. So while the bullet hit him, it didn't pierce his brain, so he survived with just a small injury. They kept Polnareff in the dark because he has a habit of letting his mouth run away. A flesh bud erupts out of Enya's body, and Joseph tries to get her to spill the beans about Dio's stand. However, she gives up nothing. Now this is another trait from the manga that they left out. It's a big, long, running joke that Old Man Joseph constantly screams profanity or takes Lord's name in vain in English, but they haven't done it even once so far. Even this scene in the newer adaptation had it in there.
Oh, God!
The city turns out to be a construct made from Enya's stand all along, and once she's dead, everything returns to ruins. They find the Whole Horse is somehow still alive.
Leave him alone. He needs to be hospitalized. He's no longer a threat.
Yeah, don't bother to call for help or anything, just leave him there, he'll be fine. So that brings us to the end of part 1. What can I say so far? Well, right off the bat, I did notice the absence of some iconic scenes, like the Steely Dan beatdown and the car stand Wheel of Fortune. But again, I only know these from the memes. If you don't know how crazy Jojo is supposed to get, then this isn't that bad. The biggest problem I'm having so far is that it's so tame compared to how the memes and videos make it out to be. While the 90s style animation does lend itself to the action, and the shading and coloring are nice and dramatic, it's just too calm for how Jojo is supposed to be. Just based on what little bit I do know, I feel like this focuses more on being a 90s anime and less on being an adaptation of Jojo. Even though this came out in the early 2000s, the style is still 90s to coincide with Part 2, which was released in 93. That's what I'd say so far. It's too 90s and not bizarre enough. It's called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for a reason, but I would say this is no more bizarre than most of what you could catch on Toonami back in the day. Well, I say that, but things have gotten pretty bizarre so far, what with the flesh buds and the mist zombies and a stand that's literally a boat. Hello?
You said boat.
How did you even hear that?
It doesn't matter. You know the rules. Your next line is, "Stop dropping boats on me, you insufferable dirtbag."
Stop dropping boats on me, you insufferable... Nani?